You know, people like to talk about overnight success stories. Those rags to riches fairy tale you see in clickbait headlines, from broke to billionaire in 5 steps, as if life works that way. Let me tell you something right now, nothing about my story was overnight. I bled for this. I sweated through years of humiliation, rejection, and late nights staring at my computer screen until the letters blurred. I ate noodles for dinner more times than I can count. I wore the same pair of shoes until the soles gave out. All because I had this fire burning in me, a stubborn little voice that said, one day, you're going to build something they can't ignore. And then. I did. I bought a mansion. Not just any mansion. The kind of house you'd stop your car to stare at if you drove past it. The kind of place that makes you question whether someone like you even belongs in that neighborhood. White stone walls, glass panels stretching 2 floors high, a fountain out front that sparkled in the sunlight like it was mocking the concept of water bills. It was obscene. It was beautiful. It was mine. The first night I stepped into that house, I didn't bring anyone with me. No friends, no family. Just me and the echo of my footsteps across polished marble floors. I wanted that moment to sink into my bones, proof that I'd climbed the mountain alone and planted my flag at the top. I poured myself a cheap glass of whiskey, sat in the empty living room surrounded by boxes, and I swear I laughed until I cried. But here's the part one didn't see coming. While I was still catching my breath from the climb, my family, the very people who never believed I'd make it this far, were already sharpening their knives. It started small. Harmless, even. My cousin came over for a visit, and he walked through the house like a real estate agent, pointing at rooms and saying, "This one'll be perfect for me. I'll put my TV here. I'll knock that wall down." I laughed at first. You laugh at those kinds of comments because what else can you do? But the jokes didn't stop. They spread. My mother called me one evening and said, "Don't forget, this house is ours now. It's for the family. We'll all live there together." I thought she was kidding. She wasn't. Soon enough, group chats lit up with furniture plans, who was taking which bedroom, even schedules for family dinners. And all of this without anyone asking me what I wanted. Without anyone remembering that I had lived on scraps while they told me to quit, that I had been the punchline at every holiday dinner, that I had been called delusional for even daring to dream this big. You'd think owning a mansion would make you feel like a king. But that first month, all I felt was robbed. Not robbed of money, I'd secured the deed, the title, the keys. I was robbed of victory. My family had taken the sweetness out of it, twisted my moment into theirs. And you know what hurt the most? They made me feel like a stranger in my own home. Every time I walked through those endless hallways, I didn't hear silence anymore. I heard the chatter of them moving in, unpacking, claiming corners that didn't belong to them. I imagined their voices bouncing off the walls, drowning mine out. So one night, staring out at the city lights from the balcony, I made a decision. If they wanted to turn my triumph into a free ride, if they thought they could call my house theirs, then I'd have to remind them exactly whose name was on the deed. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg for respect. No. I was going to set a trap. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You see, back then, they still believed they had me cornered, that their manipulation was working. They were so sure of themselves, so arrogant, that they didn't notice the way I was watching, listening, collecting every careless word they spoke. And let me tell you, when the day came, when their suitcases rolled up the driveway and they thought they were stepping into their new life, I was ready. Deadly ready. But that's not this chapter. This chapter is just the beginning. This chapter is me standing in an empty mansion, holding a glass of cheap whiskey, and realizing that every story has 2 victories, the one the world sees when you reach the top, and the one you earn when you defend it. And I was about to earn mine in a way they'd never forget. Let me tell you something about entitlement. It doesn't knock politely at your door. It doesn't tiptoe in, asking if it can stay for the night. No. Entitlement kicks the door wide open, sits on your couch, and demands a drink. And the scary part? Half the time, the people doing it don't even realize how shameless they've become. That's exactly what my family did. At first, it was just the little comments I told you about. My cousin claiming a room. My mom calling the house ours. But soon, those whispers turned into declarations. Suddenly, I wasn't the homeowner anymore. I was just the guy holding the keys until everyone else decided to move in. One Sunday afternoon, I invited them over for lunch. Thought maybe, just maybe, they'd see the mansion for what it really was, a symbol of how far I'd come. I grilled steaks in the backyard, poured wine, even gave them a little tour of the pool house. I thought they'd be proud. I thought they'd clap me on the back and say, "You did it. We're proud of you." But pride wasn't what I saw in their eyes. It was hunger. The way my aunt walked through the hallways, trailing her fingers across the walls like she was testing the paint. The way my little brother sprawled across the leather sofa, shoes on the cushions, saying, "Yeah, this'll be my spot." The way my mom whispered to my dad when they thought I wasn't listening, "The kids will love growing up here." Growing up here. That was the moment I knew. They weren't joking anymore. They weren't play acting. They were planning. And me? I stood there smiling, jaw tight, gripping my glass of wine like it was the only anchor keeping me from exploding. I wanted to scream. I wanted to remind them of the nights I starved while they told me I was wasting my life. But I stayed quiet. Because silence is a weapon, too. The next few weeks were hell. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Messages poured in like I'd opened up reservations at a hotel. "When should we bring the moving truck? Can you clear out the West Wing for us? Don't forget, Sunday dinners are mandatory once we're all living there." Mandatory. The audacity of it lit a fire in me. I couldn't walk through my own home without imagining them cluttering every corner, sucking the air out of the place. I couldn't take a shower without picturing someone banging on the door, demanding their turn. It wasn't a house anymore, it was a battlefield waiting to happen. And here's the thing, when you've fought your whole life for something, when you've sacrificed blood and years and sanity for a dream, you don't just roll over and let people steal it. Not even if they share your last name. Especially if they share your last name. But my family thought they had me figured out. To them, I was still that desperate, hungry kid they could push around. They thought guilt would pin me down, that word, family, would keep me obedient. And maybe once upon a time, it would have. Not anymore. One night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I realized I had two options. I could confront them, scream and argue, beg them to respect me. But that would only feed their narrative, that I was weak, ungrateful, dramatic. Or I could play their game. Smiling on the outside. Nodding when they said something outrageous. Pretending to go along with their little fantasy. All the while, behind the mask, planning something they would never see coming. See, that's the funny thing about predators, they get sloppy when they think their prey is cornered. They stop watching. They stop listening. And that's when you strike. So I struck. I told them, "Fine. Move in. Pick a day. Bring your bags." You should have seen their faces when I said it. Relief. Triumph. They thought they'd won. Thought I'd finally given up and surrendered. But inside, I was laughing. Because I knew exactly what was waiting for them on the other side of that front door. Let me tell you, revenge tastes a lot sweeter when you season it with patience. And my patience? Oh, it was about to pay off in ways they couldn't even imagine. You ever watch a movie where the villain walks straight into the hero's trap, and you're sitting there on the edge of your seat, whispering, "Don't go in there." But they go in anyway. That was my family. Only this time, I wasn't the victim. I was the one pulling the strings. The plan came to me on a quiet Tuesday night, when the group chat blew up with messages. They'd finally picked a date, Saturday morning. That's when they'd show up with their bags, their kids, their dogs, their entire circus. And that's when I decided, fine. Let them come. But it wouldn't be the welcome they were expecting. See, what my family didn't know was that I had signed a little piece of paper a few days earlier. A rental agreement. Not for my mansion, of course, oh no. I wasn't about to let them step foot inside those pristine white walls. No, I rented out a smaller property just down the block. A beautiful house, sure, but nowhere near what they thought they were getting. And here's the twist, I told the tenants, college kids, broke but grateful for a deal, that I'd need the place empty for just one morning. I slid them a stack of cash and promised they could move back in by nightfall. They didn't ask questions. They just smiled, took the money, and vanished. So there I was, Friday night, standing in that empty rental house. The floors were dusty. The walls echoed when I spoke. It wasn't bad, but compared to my mansion, it was a joke. And that was the point. My family was about to walk in thinking they'd inherited royalty, only to find themselves in a hollow shell. Saturday morning arrived like Christmas Day. Not for me, no, for them. They rolled up in a caravan of cars, trunks bursting with luggage, kids running around screaming about which bedroom would be theirs. They didn't even knock. They just dragged their bags to the door, laughing, shouting, clapping each other on the back like it was some kind of family festival. I stood there waiting, leaning against the doorway with a smile I could barely keep from cracking wide open. "Welcome home," I said. The way their faces lit up. You'd think I'd handed them the keys to heaven. They barged in, spreading out, calling dibs on rooms, opening closets like they were checking inventory. My cousin actually yelled, "This room's mine," while tossing his suitcase on the floor. For a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the messages. The smug voices. The way they'd stolen my victory before I'd even had a chance to enjoy it. And any sympathy I had vanished. I let them bask in it for about 15 minutes. 15 glorious minutes of them parading around like kings and queens of a castle that wasn't theirs. I followed behind, quiet, watching, soaking in every second of their arrogance. And then I dropped it. "You know this isn't my house, right?" The room froze. "What?" my aunt asked, her voice sharp. "This isn't mine," I said, shrugging like it was no big deal. "It's a rental. Place is leased out. Thought I'd let you guys get comfortable first before telling you." You should have seen their faces. Shock melted into confusion, confusion into anger. My mother's jaw clenched so tight I thought her teeth might crack. "What kind of joke is this?" she demanded. "Not a joke," I replied calmly. "I just figured, since you were so eager to move in, I'd give you a little taste of what freeloading really feels like." The explosion was instant. Voices raised, accusations thrown like daggers. "You're ungrateful. You think you're better than us. After all we've done for you." That last one almost made me laugh out loud. All they'd ever done for me was doubt me, mock me, remind me of every failure. And now they were calling me ungrateful. The hypocrisy was almost art. I didn't yell back. I didn't need to. I just stood there, calm, arms folded, letting them spiral. Their anger was proof my plan was working. They weren't in control anymore. I was. Finally, when the shouting reached its peak, I raised my hand. "All right," I said. "Fun's over. Pack your bags. You're not staying here. Or anywhere else that belongs to me." The silence that followed was heavy. Their pride had taken a hit, and they hated me for it. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care. That night, they left the rental house in a storm of insults and slammed car doors. And I stood there watching them go, feeling lighter than I had in years. But I wasn't finished. No, that was just the prelude. The next morning, I had something much bigger planned. Something they could never spin, never twist, never deny. I was about to go public. And once I did, my family wouldn't just be humiliated in private, they'd be humiliated in front of the entire city. You see, Humiliation in private only stings for a little while. People can spin the story, rewrite the memory, convince themselves it wasn't that bad. But humiliation in public? Under bright lights, in front of cameras, with witnesses who'll never let them forget? That's permanent. That's the kind of scar you don't cover up. And I was about to carve that scar deep. The morning after the rental house incident, my phone lit up like fireworks. Missed calls. Angry texts. Long, guilt-ridden voice notes from my mother. You'd think I'd committed a crime. She was crying into the phone, wailing about betrayal, about disrespect, about how family is supposed to stick together. I didn't even reply. Because while she was drowning in her own self-pity, I was getting dressed in my sharpest suit, polishing my shoes until they shone like mirrors, and heading straight into the city. Where? A local TV station. Now, don't get it twisted, I wasn't some celebrity with connections to media moguls. But when you own the biggest mansion in the city, people want to talk. They want the story. They want the exclusive. And me? I was more than happy to give it to them. The producer met me at the door, grinning like he'd just found buried treasure. You're the mansion guy, right? The one who bought the estate on the hill. I smiled. That's me. Within the hour, I was in the studio. Bright lights. Cameras pointed straight at me. A microphone clipped to my collar. The host leaned forward with that practiced smile, ready to serve up the kind of feel-good story the audience eats alive. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, we have with us today the proud new owner of the largest private residence in the city. That was my cue. Now, you have to understand something, this wasn't just about showing off. It wasn't about flexing. This was about control. About ripping the narrative out of my family's hands and holding it high for the world to see. So I sat up straight, looked straight into the camera, and said, yes. That mansion. It's mine. Every brick, every tile, every inch of glass and marble. I worked for it, I bled for it, and I earned it. Alone. I let that word alone hang in the air. You could almost hear the tension crackle through the studio. The host nodded, smiling, but I wasn't done. I know there are people out there who'd love to claim a piece of it. People who think they're entitled to the fruits of someone else's labor. But let me make this perfectly clear, this house is not theirs. It's mine. And no one, family, friend, or stranger, has the right to take it away. The host blinked, caught off guard. She probably expected a safe, humble brag interview. Instead, I'd turned it into a declaration of war. But the audience? Oh, they ate it up. You could see it in the way the cameramen exchanged glances, the way the producer signaled for more close-ups. This wasn't just news, it was drama. The kind that sells. By the time the broadcast ended, my phone was on fire again. Only this time, it wasn't just my family. It was strangers. Congratulations. Admiration. People cheering me on for standing my ground. The mansion guy wasn't just a homeowner anymore, I was a symbol. And my family? They were livid. Word traveled fast. That afternoon, relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years called, demanding explanations. My aunt accused me of embarrassing the family name. My cousin said I'd made them look like fools. Made them? No. They'd done that all on their own. All I did was shine a light on it. That night, I drove back to my mansion. Pulled into the long driveway, the fountain sparkling in the moonlight. For the first time since buying the place, I felt at peace walking through those doors. The silence wasn't haunted anymore. It was mine. But as I poured myself a drink and sat by the window, I couldn't shake one thought. I'd won. I'd humiliated them. I'd claimed my throne in front of the entire city. But revenge? Revenge has a funny way of never feeling complete. Because once you taste it, once you hear the snap of that trap closing, a part of you wonders, what else can I do? How much further can I go? And let me tell you, my story didn't end with a TV broadcast. No. That was just the explosion that shook the ground. The real aftermath, the fallout, the consequences. That's where things got interesting. You'd think after going on live television and declaring myself the king of the castle, that would be it. Story over. Roll credits. But life doesn't tie itself up in a neat little bow. Not when family's involved. The night after the broadcast, my mansion was quiet. Too quiet. I wandered from room to room with a glass in my hand, admiring the silence I'd fought so hard to protect. But the stillness carried an edge, like the calm after a thunderstorm when you know another one's brewing on the horizon. Because here's the thing about people who feel entitled, they don't just stop. They don't say, "You win, we're done." No. They regroup. They lick their wounds. And then they come back. And come back they did. The calls turned into threats. Subtle at first, questions about whether my legal paperwork was really in order. Whispers about challenging my ownership. Then louder, angry relatives warning me I'd regret embarrassing them. My cousin even threatened to show up with movers and take what's his. I should have been afraid. But I wasn't. See, once you've walked through fire, once you've clawed your way from nothing to everything, fear doesn't hold the same weight anymore. I'd already faced the worst, years of being underestimated, ridiculed, treated like garbage. Compared to that, an angry voicemail. Please. Still, I knew better than to underestimate them. Wolves bite hardest when they're cornered. So I doubled down. I called my lawyer. I fortified my defenses, not just legally, but emotionally. I made a promise to myself, never again would I let anyone, not even family, claim what was mine. And slowly, the noise began to fade. My mother's calls became less frequent. My aunt stopped sending passive-aggressive emails. My cousin. He went silent, his pride too wounded to keep barking. And as their voices died down, something incredible happened. For the first time in years, I could breathe. I could wake up in the morning, walk through my halls, and feel the weight of accomplishment settle on my shoulders without it being stolen. I could stand by the window at night, staring at the city below, and know, every brick, every tile, every shimmering light, it all belonged to me. But more than that, I'd reclaimed something bigger than a mansion. I'd reclaimed myself. Because here's the truth nobody tells you, sometimes, the most toxic chains aren't made of steel. They're made of blood. The word family becomes a leash, a weapon used to keep you obedient, to guilt you into submission. Cutting that chain hurts like hell, but once it's gone, you finally know what freedom tastes like. And freedom? It's addictive. So yes, I lost my family that day. Or maybe they lost me. Either way, the bond was broken. And though a part of me mourned it, another part of me, the bigger part, rejoiced. Because I'd spent my whole life chasing their approval, and I finally understood I never needed it. Now when people ask me about the mansion, I don't just tell them about the marble floors, the fountain, or the glass walls. I tell them it's a monument. A fortress. A reminder that sometimes, to truly win, you don't just build walls around your home, you build walls around your soul. Do I regret it? Not for a second. Because the day my family tried to steal my dream was the day I realized something vital: you don't just fight for success. You fight to keep it. And sometimes, that fight isn't against strangers or competitors, it's against the very people who claim to love you. And me? I won that fight. But as I sit here, telling you this story, staring into the camera, I'll admit one thing. Sometimes, late at night, when the city is quiet and the mansion feels too big, I wonder if the war is really over. Because deep down, I know entitlement doesn't die, it waits. And if my family ever decides to rise from the ashes, to come for me again, well, let's just say I'll be ready. So, that's my story. My family thought they could steal my dream, but in the end, I proved to them, and to the world, that everything I built was mine. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have set the same trap, or taken a different path? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I'll be reading them. And hey, if you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Trust me, there are plenty of people out there fighting their own battles against entitlement. This is just the beginning. Stick around, there's more where this came from.